On Thanksgiving, my sister didn't raise a toast, she raised my laptop, and in front of 20 relatives, she exposed my 12.6 million like she'd uncovered a crime. The room went silent. My mother's fork slipped from her hand. My father stared at the screen as if the daughter he knew had been replaced by a bank vault. Then came the demands. Sharp entitled piling onto me faster than I could breathe. But what none of them realized, not Chloe, my sister, not my parents, not anyone in that room, was that I had uncovered their secret first. Before I dive in, tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and stay with me until the end before you judge me for refusing my sister's dream. My name is Haley, and for most of my life, people assumed I grew up in a perfect little lakeside family in Minnesota. A quiet house, a quiet town, and a quiet childhood. The kind where neighbors wave from their porches and everyone brings a casserole when something goes wrong. And for a while, that was true. When I was little, my dad would take me fishing at dawn, letting me hold the rod while the sky shifted from blue to gold. My mom used to braid my hair before heading to her night shift, humming the same soft tune every time. But everything changed the winter my sister Chloe was born 2 months early. I still remember the ambulance lights flickering through my bedroom window, the cold air biting my cheeks as my aunt hurried me into her car. At the hospital, no one looked at me. Everyone leaned over the incubator, whispering like Chloe was a miracle carved out of glass. And maybe she was. But from that night on, the entire house revolved around protecting her. Rooms smelled like bleach. Air purifiers hummed through the night. Anytime I so much as sneezed, I was sent to Grandma June's. She'd hand me warm cookies, let me sort through her old jewelry box, and say things like, "You see details other people miss, sweetheart." She made me feel seen, even when the rest of my family acted like I was a walking threat to my baby sister. As we grew up, the distance didn't shrink, it stretched. When I came home with straight-A report cards, Mom barely looked up. When I won my middle school science fair, Dad said, "Good job," without lifting his eyes from Chloe's ballet brochure. Meanwhile, every scribble Chloe made was framed on the wall like museum art. Every performance, every small achievement, every new hobby, my parents recorded it all. By 8th grade, I'd stopped trying to compete. I started working afternoons at a local bakery. Mrs. Parker, the owner, was the first person outside my grandmother who actually noticed me. She taught me how effort could become pride, how patience could become skill. I saved every dollar, filled out every college application on my own, and earned a full scholarship to a university near Chicago. No one came to my graduation, but Mrs. Parker sent flowers. Fast forward years later, I'm in my late 20s wearing quiet luxury instead of hand-me-downs, running a small but respected authentication practice that works with estate lawyers, auction houses, collectors, nothing flashy but enough to build a life that is fully mine. And yet, despite all of that, my family still saw me exactly the same way they always had, unimportant, invisible, the daughter who didn't need anything and therefore didn't deserve anything. Until Thanksgiving, when they finally noticed me, or rather, noticed the number on my screen. By the time I hit my late 20s, my life looked nothing like the version my family imagined. They still thought I worked some small side job dealing with old jewelry, the kind you find in thrift stores. They never asked questions, never wondered how I paid my bills, or why I was always traveling for work. To them, Chloe was still the star of the household, the fragile miracle who somehow needed rescuing year after year, major after major. Chloe had already changed her degree 4 times by then, each switch more expensive than the last. Interior design was her newest calling, and the tuition hit harder than the others. My mom called one night, voice trembling just enough to feel rehearsed. "Your sister's trying so hard. She just needs a little help." A little help meant thousands every month. I agreed without arguing, set up a recurring transfer, and went back to polishing an early 1900s brooch under my lamp. It wasn't generosity, it was habit, decades of being told that Chloe needs and I provide. But the more Chloe spent, the louder she became online. One day, she posted a photo of a limited edition car with the caption, "Hard work pays off." I stared at the screen for a long time, not angry, just hollow. My parents reposted it with the hashtag proud. Later that evening, they sent me a text reminding me that family sticks together during tough times. No one asked how my month was going, no one asked how many hours I'd worked, or whether I'd slept. They just assumed I'd keep pouring into a cup that had no bottom. Then the comments started coming back to me. People in town whispering that Haley still relies on her parents, that I should find a stable job instead of chasing old trinkets. They didn't know those whispers came from Chloe's own mouth. She had told her boyfriend's friends that my parents were helping me out because I couldn't keep up financially. One of them, a former client, pulled me aside at an event and said I didn't know you were going through a tough time. I wasn't. But my family was so invested in the story of Chloe the future and Haley the burden that they never updated the script. Still, every Sunday dinner I showed up. Quiet, composed. Chloe scrolling on her phone, Mom bragging about her dad nodding in agreement, as if Chloe's minor group project was a national award. When I'd speak about a gallery I was advising or a collection I was authenticating, they'd blink politely and steer the conversation back to Chloe's potential. Potential. That word was the altar they sacrificed all logic to. Thanksgiving approached with the same routine I'd host, pay cook, or cater whatever made things easier. But something felt different that year. The way Mom said, "Everyone's counting on you." The way Dad avoided eye contact when I asked who everyone was. The way Chloe smirked when she asked if I'd be setting the table like always, as if I were staff instead of family. Somewhere deep inside me, a wire started pulling tight. And on Thanksgiving morning, as I arranged the last dish on the table, I realized it had finally snapped. Thanksgiving morning started the same way it always did, with me handling everything. I'd hired a high-end caterer from Chicago, the kind I usually booked for private collectors' dinners. They arrived with polished trays, portable ovens, and a tablescape kit that made the dining room look like it belonged in a magazine. No one asked how much it cost. No one asked if I needed help. They just assumed I'd take care of it the same way I always had. Mom walked in, glanced at the setup, and said, "Good. At least this year will look impressive for Chloe's boyfriend," as if the entire holiday hinged on making Chloe shine. I kept my voice steady. "It's just dinner, Mom." She waved me off. "You know what I mean. Chloe deserves a nice evening." I didn't answer. I adjusted the silverware, turned a candle, straightened a charger plate. Small motions that kept my hands from shaking. Because deep down, something had shifted. I could feel it. A quiet edge in the air, a sense that Chloe was circling me, waiting for a moment to pounce. I didn't have to wait long. Hours later, after everyone had arrived and settled, I slipped upstairs to check a live auction overseas. Authentication notes, auction data, pending valuations. My whole world lit up on the laptop. That's when Chloe suddenly barged in without knocking, perfume clouding the doorway. "What are you doing?" she asked, but her eyes weren't on me. They were glued to the screen, specifically the account balance glowing in the corner. 12,600,000. Her expression changed instantly. First shock, then calculation, then something cold. "Wow," she whispered. "Does Mom know you've been hiding all of this?" I stood up, but she was faster. She grabbed the laptop, holding it like a prize she'd just won. "Chloe, stop." My voice came out sharper than I intended. She smirked. "Relax. Let's show everyone how successful you really are." She didn't wait for my reaction. She didn't care. She walked straight downstairs, heels tapping like a countdown clock. By the time I reached the dining room, she was already standing beside the table, laptop raised high. "Everyone look at this," she announced. "Haley's been keeping secrets." The screen faced the room. My balance, my contracts, my reports. A hush fell so heavy it sucked the air out of the walls. Someone dropped a spoon. Someone else whispered my name like they weren't sure who I was anymore. Mom's eyes widened, not with pride, but with accusation. Dad leaned forward, jaw tight, like he'd just uncovered evidence of betrayal. And Chloe, my sister, watched it all with a triumphant little smile, as if exposing me were some kind of justice. I waited for someone, anyone, to say it was wrong, to defend me, to call Chloe out. No one did. Not a single voice rose for me. And that was the moment something inside me began to turn. Not in anger yet, but in clarity, a quiet understanding that this was no accident. This was a choice. Their choice. For a few seconds, no one moved. The room held its breath like the entire table was suspended between shock and something uglier. Chloe still stood there, clutching my laptop as if she'd just performed a heroic public service. Mom broke first. "Haley," she said, voice trembling in that way she used when she wanted to sound wounded. How could you keep this from us? From us, not wow, congratulations, not we're proud of you. Just how dare you not share what's yours? Dad leaned back, fingers tapping the table. That tapping used to soothe me when I was little. Now it sounded like judgment. "When were you going to tell us?" he demanded. "When were you going to step up for this family?" I stared at him, stunned. I've been stepping up for years, but they weren't listening. Chloe's boyfriend whistled under his breath. "Damn, that's a lot of zeros." Mom shot him a glare, then returned her gaze to me, eyes narrowing. "You've been letting us struggle," she said, "all while hiding this." I felt a laugh rise in my throat, not from humor, but disbelief. "Hiding Mom. I've been sending you money every month for 2 years. The room stilled again. Mom blinked. "Money? What money?" "The transfers," I said, "every month. For Chloe's tuition, for her housing, for her everything." Chloe's face flushed. "You make it sound like I didn't need it. You bought a limited edition car." My voice cracked. "You took trips to Cabo. You posted designer bags like they were snacks. And still, every month, Mom called me crying that you were struggling." "She was struggling," Mom snapped. "Emotionally." I stared at her. "You asked me for thousands for her mental health, but she was buying jewelry and planning beach vacations." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. We're not talking about Chloe's choices." He pointed at the laptop. "We're talking about your responsibility." "My responsibility," I repeated. "Toward what?" "Your expectations, her lifestyle." Mom shook her head like I was missing something obvious. "You have the means, Haley. Family shares. That's how it works. Your sister deserves a future." There it was, the line that slid the final piece of the puzzle into place. My sister deserves a future. Not me. Not all the futures I'd carved out alone. Just hers. "And what about my future?" I asked quietly. Mom frowned. "You're fine. You've always been fine. You don't need anything." The sentence dropped like a stone into the room, rippling through everything I'd ever known about them. I don't need anything. A convenient belief. A belief that allowed them to take without asking, expect, without guilt, demand, without boundaries. Chloe stepped forward, chin-high voice cracking with righteous indignation. "You owe me, Haley. I've been struggling for years while you hoarded your success. I'm your sister. You can't just let me fail. Fail at what I asked. You haven't stayed in any major long enough to finish a semester." Her lips trembled. "I'm finding myself." "On my dime," I whispered. Her eyes hardened. "It's not just your dime. It's family money." For a moment, no one spoke. Even the caterers in the kitchen fell silent, sensing a storm they wanted no part of. Dad gestured sharply. "If you have this kind of wealth, you should have told us. We could have planned. We could have helped guide you. Guide me." The same man who never once asked what I wanted to be. The same man who skipped my graduation for Chloe's preschool recital. "What exactly," I asked, "would you have guided me toward?" "To doing the right thing," he said. "To supporting your sister. She has dreams. She has potential." Potential. That cursed word again. I straightened. "And what about my work, my career, my company?" Mom scoffed softly. "It's just jewelry, Haley. Just jewelry. The industry I built from scratch. The expertise museums relied on. The business that paid for every one of Chloe's whims." I felt something inside me click, like unlocking a safe. Except this time, I was locking one. I stepped forward. "What you all saw on that screen, every dollar, was earned by me. Every contract, every collection, every appraisal, every sleepless night. None of it came from you." Dad bristled. "We raised you. You raised me to disappear," I said. "Raised me to stay quiet so Chloe could shine. Raised me to believe that anything I achieved mattered less than anything she attempted." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "You're making me sound like a villain." I took a shaky breath. "You're not a villain, Chloe. You're a product of our parents' choices." She flinched. Mom gasped. Dad muttered a curse under his breath. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and opened the banking app. For once, my hands didn't tremble. "You want transparency?" I asked. They watched confused. I tapped one button, then another, then one final confirmation. The room buzzed with anticipation. "What did you do?" Mom whispered. I looked Chloe in the eye. I canceled every payment, every automatic transfer, every dollar I've been sending for 2 years. Chloe froze. Then she exploded. "What, you can't? I need that money. I have rent projects, my portfolio. That's not my responsibility," I said evenly. Dad's voice rose. "You should be ashamed." "Ashamed," I repeated. "I've supported this family more than anyone at this table. But the moment you discovered the truth, the first thing you did was demand more." The air between us thickened, sharp metallic, like the taste of blood after biting your tongue. I continued softer now. "You didn't see me. You never did. Only what I could give." Silence. Then Mom whispered, barely audible, "So you're abandoning us. I'm choosing myself," I said. For the first time in years, the sentence didn't feel selfish. It felt like oxygen. I closed my laptop, took it gently from Chloe's frozen hands, and headed toward the door. No one followed. No one apologized. No one called my name. Only one voice trailed after me, Mom's brittle with desperation. "What about your sister's future?" I paused at the door, turned slightly, and answered, "She can build it, just like I did." Then I stepped outside into the cold air, the noise of the dining room muffling behind the door, like a chapter closing. I didn't look back. Not once. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry either. I just sat in my living room with the lights off, listening to the steady hum of the heater and feeling the weight of everything I had finally put down. By morning, the messages flooded in missed calls from Mom, long paragraphs from Dad, and a string of frantic texts from Chloe that swung between threats and pleas. Then came the emails. Not from strangers, no. From relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years, suddenly concerned about the family and asking if I could clarify a few things about the money. Someone must have shared my number in a group chat. That was the moment I called Ethan, the attorney I'd worked with on high-value estate cases. I forwarded everything. I didn't need revenge. I needed boundaries. He read in silence, then said, "We'll handle this. I'll send formal notices today. No one contacts you directly again." Relief washed through me. Not dramatic, just quiet and heavy, like unclenching a fist I didn't know I'd been holding. While Chloe posted a long, dramatic social media rant implying I'd abandoned my fragile family, I moved forward. I moved out of the old apartment and into a modest mid-century villa outside Madison, overlooking a lake that stayed calm even on windy days. Grandma June came to stay a week and ended up unpacking her things permanently. Work grew too, more collectors, more museums, more projects that valued precision instead of guilt. For the first time, my life was mine, undiluted, undemanded, unowned. Some mornings now, I stand by the window of my new home and watch the light hit the lake, soft, even nothing like the chaos I walked away from. Grandma June brews coffee in the kitchen, humming the same tune my mother used to before everything changed. Except here, it doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like healing. I've learned something I wish someone had told me years ago. Family isn't defined by who shares your blood, but by who respects your boundaries. Love without respect is just control, dressed up as obligation. And choosing yourself isn't betrayal, it's survival. Chloe still posts her cryptic messages. My parents still tell people I turned cold. Maybe they believe it. Maybe it's easier than facing the truth. But I no longer need their version of me. If you've ever stood where I stood, torn between guilt and freedom, share your story in the comments. And hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.